Welcome in to the CFR Draft Show Roundtables. I know you guys just saw our intro, but I just want to let you guys know today we are discussing the linebacker position. We are discussing linebackers here today. Now, the Bills, we know they have signed back the much talked about Matt Milano, and linebacker was not as high of a need as it once was. But now the Bills have actually talked to a lot of linebackers in this 2021 draft class. And so today we have a star-studded linebacker lineup for you today. And today we are going to start with linebacker from Tulsa, Zaven Collins. Zaven Collins is a big, physical, athletic freak linebacker, 6'4", 260, a red shirt junior. His biggest strength is his size. They say his biggest weakness is his tackling. Now, if you remember, Zaven Collins had that pick six to end the game. I can't remember which team it was, but this kid has the tools that you are looking for the modern-day linebacker. And, Greg, we want you to start because this is one of your guys. But first, before you start and go into Zaven Collins, one thing I want you to help the listeners understand, I want you to talk a little bit about how the evolution of the linebacker position has come about, because you remember about 10 years ago, your linebackers were like short, stocky guys who could tackle really well, but now they're tall, long, and guys who can cover. So I want you to talk a little bit about that as you talk about Zaven Collins.
Yeah, thanks for putting that little bit of extra on my plate there. So, obviously we're talking Zaven Collins here, and most everybody knows that this was my crush. This was my draft crush from Jump Street, and when I joined up with Cold Front and getting involved in the draft, linebackers was my first spot because I felt like at that time we were going to need a replacement for Matt Milano, and I fell in love with Zaven Collins. He's 6'4", 255, 260 pounds. He's big, he's physical, and he's got a really good blend of, speed and athleticism. But what you get out of him and you watch him is that the things that he does, now you condense it, you watch his highlight tape, and a lot of things jump off you, a lot of likable traits. Where you got a guy who's got that kind of size and that ability. He plays in coverage. He's got good instincts in coverage. He always seems to be Johnny on the spot. He's grabbing balls out of the air. He's picking balls off. He's able to turn these for the 260-pound horse. He's made some big, lengthy returns. He's got that athleticism. So that jumps out at you, especially when you were looking, I think, with Matt Milano. I felt like at the time we needed somebody who can kind of basically replace Matt Milano's coverage ability, yet be a presence inside the box and be able to kind of set the edge, so to speak. And I thought that was Zaven Collins. I think he has those tools, even though he's not completely a refined product yet. I think he's got that kind of makeup and can kind of be that dual threat linebacker. I think there's a ton of upside with him. He had a great 2020. It was a shortened season for him. He was highly productive. Interceptions, sacks, tackles for a loss, and just showed up everywhere. Was the Nagurski Award winner, best linebacker in the country. So I think he showed the country he could play, that he's, definitely in a conversation for a first-round pick. But where we're at now, so much has changed in terms of what we need and what we're looking to address in the linebacking position, where I'm not sure Zaven Collins right now fits exactly what we're looking to do with bringing back Milano. I have considered thinking of moving him into inside linebacker just based on his size and some of his limitations, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily a route we would go. But like I say, if you want me to touch on the evolution of the linebacking position, where the 5'11", 230-pound squatty guys that were just the Zach Thomas thudders that were bringing helmet into shoulder pads into every play, that were train wrecks waiting to happen, and kind of played with the reckless abandonment type of linebackers who were just run stuffers and hardcore blitzers, was kind of where it was a few years back. But now we've evolved from that, where we're not necessarily looking for linebackers to do that, where that's almost secondary. What we're looking for is linebackers who can cover. And in a league where every team is spreading out the field, running 4 and 5 wides, you need to keep as much personnel on the field and be as versatile as you can be in this era of football. And I think what we're looking for now are guys who could cover first and play the run second. So that's kind of the evolution we're in, and that's when we're looking at linebackers tonight. The biggest thing we're going to talk about isn't can they rush the passer, is can they set the edge, are they going to be stout against the run? Yeah, those are all nice traits, but the biggest factor in evaluating a linebacker in this era of football is can they cover, and to some extent, every one of these guys could do that. Some better than others, but that's the biggest takeaway when you're looking at a linebacker now is can this guy cover? Because they have to. The days of the middle linebacker just thumping in the box is over and done with. We're not there anymore.
Yeah, and so I'm so glad that you touched on that, because I'm sitting here thinking in my head, I'm like, why are my linebackers not looking like they used to? And it kind of just snuck up and crept up on me. And I think when you touch on it, you lead the show with it. You kind of put it in everyone else's mind, like, hey, the linebacker position looks different now. Like you said, I mean, everybody's tall, long, and they have to be able to cover now. And so, Mud Dog, I want you to talk about if Zaven Collins, was to be drafted by the Bills, let's say maybe first round, second round, whatever the case may be. One of his cons is the level of competition was no great shake, right? How do you think that will impact him at the next level? What do you think about his level of competition, and how fair of a criticism do you think that is for him?
I hate that criticism against the kid when they say the level of the competition isn't there. You got to look at what did he play against. How did he do against the people he played against? And he balled out. You put on the Tulsa tape. Name another player from Tulsa that pops out off your eye.
It's a fact.
Right. You can't. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Crickets. So I'm not gonna knock him. I'm not gonna knock him on that. I think if we would have drafted him at 30, it would give us a really solid linebacker core with Milano, Tremaine, and you can still play on the other outside linebacker position. I think it will give us a really solid, very solid three linebackers. And also, what this draft can really do is help us build for the future. So you already have Zaven Collins in. He knows the system. Something happens to Milano, you get rid of him, or he gets hurt, you can kick him over to Milano's side without missing that beat. So it'll be very beneficiary. Collins is a guy who he's a team player. If you look at what he did in high school, he was asked to play quarterback, did it. Asked to play safety, he was only a 2-star recruit. Nobody wanted him. He's come into Tulsa and he's made a name out of himself. He's done it all the right way. I could go on forever and ever about things that I like in Zaven Collins, but the one thing that he really, really, really needs to clean up is the lack of physicality at the point of tackling. I do not like that. For somebody his size and as athletic as he is, he should not be just a lackluster tackler with physicality.
Can I pick up there?
Yeah, TFC, I wanted you to answer a question, too, because you always talk about it. You talk about a lot of the Bills just having that 11th guy. No matter what he can do, he's just being that 11th guy. How do you think Zaven Collins will fit into that A.J. Klein type role if he were to be drafted?
I don't think he does, and that's my biggest problem is, you're right, I would draft Zaven Collins if in the future my plan was to get rid of Tremaine Edmonds and move him to Mike linebacker, because my biggest problem is he's a smooth athlete, he's good in coverage, he has great movement skills, but he's not fast. Like, he gets places because he's efficient. I don't like his long speed. I feel like he's never really sprinting. I don't think he has, a good twitch to him. And those are the things you need if you're going to be, the Sam linebacker covering in the slot. If you're going to be that slot defender, that hybrid player, you can't just be good in zone coverage. You've got to be a diverse, dynamic athlete. And Zaven Collins is slow and steady wins the race. Like, I want him in the box. Yes, I would love it if the Bills did not bring back Matt Milano and he fit in as your will linebacker. He's got, coverage on the backside. He can fill in on the B gap, and he can come in and he can provide run support. As much as he doesn't play with the physicality you'd like, he does at least get to the ball. So there is some value there. But I don't see the value in the fit in Zaven Collins, and that's why for me he's not on my board, because I'm not drafting to replace Tremaine Edmonds unless he's moving on right now, and you find somebody else for that position, because he doesn't have the skill set or the athletic profile that you need to fill in that 11th defender. And again, I don't care if it's a safety or if it's cornerback or if it's a linebacker. You need a guy that can do both cover and play the run. And as much as Zaven Collins, I think he's a good box linebacker, and he's just not the guy.
Yeah, see, I think we talked about on a lot of our shows is bringing in somebody who has if you're going to bring in someone to a certain position that already has people in place, is bringing in a diverse set of talent. And does Zaven Collins at this point with this roster bring a diverse set of talent to that position? Not necessarily. And if you're going to look to run a tandem with him assuming the AJ Klein role, well, that's not really his game right now either. So it breaks my heart, and it's just funny how the offseason, progresses from 2 months ago. I would have cut my leg off to get this kid, but as we're here now, I don't really see a fit and or a need for him necessarily. And I also, going back to the tape, like I said to you guys off air, seeing that player early on, you fall in love and everything's kind of, the birds are chirping, the sun's shining, and everything looks great, and then you kind of revisit that. There's a lot of flaws in his game fundamentally. Now, he takes a lot of false steps when he's reading. He's kind of, I don't want to say, almost kind of loafing into his reads a lot of times.
No, I agree. That's one of my biggest problems. That's absolutely one of my biggest problems. He's efficient in his movements, but that's about it. As far as his mechanics, his body has no hang-ups. But he's not I never feel like he's in a hurry to get anywhere.
Yes, him dissecting the plays, it seems kind of you're waiting. I mean, there are times when he pulls a trigger. I think he does find, his angles and his lanes efficiently. Like you said, he gets there where he's got to be, and he will burst through and make those plays. I worry now about his ability to dissect in the milliseconds that you're going to have in the NFL before contact is on you and before the play is moving. So that's kind of irks me a little bit about him, where I didn't necessarily see that in the onset evaluation of him. I fell in love with the big splashy plays and all the other stuff and the size, and he does have athleticism for a guy who's 6'4", 260 pounds.
Yes.
I just think that we're so spoiled nowadays that if a guy at that position isn't running a 4.4 and has a 40-inch vertical, that we're kind of knocking him down a peg as being not as athletic as everybody else. But he does have that for that size. But I've kind of fallen out of love with the guy, and it breaks. Zaven, if you're out there, I'm sorry, buddy. It's me, not you.
Yeah.
That was nice and sweet.
Yeah.
That was sweet.
It's funny that you bring up, how the offseason changed, because we went from talking about, is Milano going to be back? Is Darrell Williams going to be back? To literally everybody being back and changing our draft plans. Where, just like you said, Zaven Collins was probably high on our board. Now we're like, we liked him, but not in the first round, not at pick 30. Maybe in the third round. Like I said, his rare size is his biggest strength, and you guys are talking about one of the most important parts of playing linebacker, and that is diagnosing and dissecting plays in like you said, the milliseconds that you have. Yes, TFC.
I just want to address something on that particular topic, because playing linebacker, cerebral way. Thank you.
Yep.
It is the hardest position to play with the RPO and with read options, and it's just impossible. I was watching Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who we'll get to in a little bit, and Alabama was running a counterplay, except that it wasn't. It was an RPO, so all the linebackers are gone, and there's a wide open window. You cannot be right in college playing the run. You just can't be. So, because if you trigger downhill too quickly, you abandon your your coverage responsibilities, and all of a sudden, now there's a 60-yard slant behind you. So, it is hard to play linebacker. So the guys that we're going to talk about, a lot of them, I think, have the same problems, but part of it is just playing college football, because it is a murderer's row of I can't be right when it comes to offenses. If you saw the thing that Nick Saban said the other day that got released on social media, how offensive coordinators of Taliban, he's right. You can't play defense in a traditional sense, really, or in a sense at all. It is so hard to play linebacker. So what you're finding here, these are the guys that are good at being wrong a lot.
Yeah. So
and that's such a good point too. Like you said, there's pro style offenses for a reason, and you don't see an awful. There's few and far in between in the college setting, and that a lot of these guys really aren't exposed. They're seeing a lot of misdirection and movement and all that stuff and all the fancy trickery happening. That it's like you said, it's hard to be a college linebacker and dissect all the moving parts that are happening. Not necessarily at the NFL level, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and which kind of cripples them, like you said, going up to the next level. So First of all, I want you guys to like and share this live stream. We appreciate everyone that is interacting with us, and keep interacting, keep giving your questions as we move to our second linebacker of the night, and that is a riser, a guy who has risen up draft board since his pro day, and that is Jamin Davis from Kentucky. This is a guy that I saw on tape, and if you look at him just without his pads on, this kid is chiseled. You know, he looks the position. You know, he can run, he can tackle, which is his biggest strength. They say his biggest strength is the fact that he can get in there and tackle. They say he's not seasoned in coverage as he needs to be, but you know, at that size, with those measurables, he probably had one of the best pro days for a linebacker out there. He ran a 4.3. I'm going to put up his pro day numbers in just a second, but you know, Jamin Davis is a linebacker that has been moving up draft boards. And Mud Dog, this is one of your guys. Talk to the people about Jamin Davis and how do you see him projecting to the NFL?
Well, it's not Jamin Davis. It's Jamin Slammin' Davis, because you watch.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir.
That's how I said in my head
this
too.
dude-
Jammin' Davis. Yeah.
Yes, this dude is. He is that dog. He is that get off the bus type first dude that you want. He does everything the right way. Solid speed, very athletic, very agile for a bigger linebacker too. Let's put that out there too. And why I love him, especially to the Buffalo Bills, he is phenomenal in zone coverage. Like, he can read and react. Very hard hitter. Sometimes watching him hit reminds me of a safety in the old days. He is not afraid. He's not afraid to take on a blocker. He will stonewall blocks if he has to. Very good closing speed. The couple things I have on him is like his lack of experience. The experience there isn't till this year. It really wasn't there. And sometimes he takes a lot of bad angles. A lot of these guys that we're talking about and stuff, even this draft other thing, are not complete players. I think, like I've said it before, this draft has so much raw talent in it overall. It's crazy. Like, this is a developmental draft for sure, in my opinion. Like, you're not going to get a lot of day one blowing off the stat sheet guys. A lot of these guys are going to take a couple years, in my opinion. And I think Jamin Davis is a guy that could, in 2 years, could be that dog in the right system, especially here in Buffalo. I would love him from Buffalo. Because like TFC said, as much as I like Xavier Collins and I'd be okay with 30, I think Jamin Slammin' Davis is a better fit for us in Buffalo because how he could play the Sam linebacker. I think he has all the tools to do it. And he kind of reminds me of a Zach Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's one of those toolsy linebackers, and he has all the freakish measurables and everything you would look for at the position. But like you guys mentioned, like, he is really raw. So TFC, do you think it's worth the Bills chasing his athleticism? Because some people have him mocked in the first round now. Do you think it's worth it for the Bills to chase his athleticism in the first, or wait and let him fall to them?
Yeah, can we do that trade down thing? Can we do that? Can we do that thing again where we magically trade down and then that's the easy answer? I would. Yeah, because the one thing I noticed on film is all of those criticisms are correct, but he also shows on tape when he does it right, and it is like, wow. It's wow. Yeah, so he's got all of, like, he has the most upside of all the guys we're talking about tonight. And there's guys that have done a ton of upside. So he's the most complete player that can play in the box. He can play in the slot. I don't know what his man coverage skills are. I would guess that they're not great. But he's got the physical tools for it. And that's the thing is, like, I think you can see and you can project all of those things. So if you're willing to risk that part, then yes, I would consider taking him in the first round because he is the guy they're missing. He's exactly the guy they're missing.
Yeah, and I think, as a guy that we will talk about later in the show, and I think that we're all pretty high on Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I think he has some of those similar traits to him.
Yeah.
And he could be that, projecting towards the NFL with some season, with some polish. But, Greg, I want you to talk about, what you from Jamin Slammin' Davis, and tell us what you like about him, and tell him, how do you think he'll play in this Bills system if he's drafted by the Bills?
Well, like I started off the whole show tonight talking about the evolution of linebackers and its coverage first right now. And this guy's, you go to his film, and I think what you really see is a guy who can cover and play in space. One of the films I broke down watching him was versus Florida. And there are a handful of plays where he is totally negating, running with, and eliminating Kyle Pitts. And I think that right there in itself is, you got a guy that I think we're all pretty much in agreement is one of the most uncoverable type of weapons going to be unleashed on the NFL in the days and weeks to come. And he's stood up against that guy extremely well. And they said he is raw. He is a little unrefined in that area, but he has the athleticism, the instincts, and stuff to do that. So I think that was a big wow for me. When you get into the measurables, I'm a little hesitant with this year's pro days. I feel like everyone's running 4.3s right now, and it just seems a little. But even if they're a little generous, what does he run, a 4.5? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The
He's
guy's
still fast.
yeah, he's still
Either way, he's still
extremely
really
fast, extremely athletic. He's got
Yeah.
that long, lean body. And someone said before, I mean, the guy is he's built like a bodybuilder, a rock solid player.
Me too.
Yeah. And that was my player comp, was TFC, just based on
That's a good comp. I like
physicals, you know. I think like most of the guys, I think he is a little slow to process things in the box. I also think I think he's better fitted north-south. When he reads and reacts straight on, you see his speed, you see his athleticism straight on. I think his instincts and his vision kind of hinder his east-west ability. So he doesn't read as fast as he can. Doesn't sift the traffic as fast as he can with his athletic ability. So he doesn't produce as much, to me, east to west as he does north to south. If that makes sense.
Do you think he can get there? Do you think
I
he can
think
get
he can.
there?
You have the tools. I think he's a raw football player, and you could teach those things. I hesitate to say you could teach instincts. He has instincts. I think he just has to learn how to read what he's seeing and pull the trigger and go and get there. And like,
So that's my question too. Did you see a progression throughout the year? Did you see him pick up things as we went throughout the 2020 season? Because that's important to me as well, that like you are in the fire and there's not as much you can teach and learn, but you learn by experience and wins and losses on the field. Did you see as much of from week 1 to week 14 of that?
I think if you watch it, I mean, in the early on of this season, he wasn't a household name. He wasn't on a draft board.
Yeah.
So I think his progression and his production and the things that he accomplished from week 1 to the end of the season, he built up his resume throughout the season and proved to people, put himself on radar that he is a legitimate NFL first, second round talent. Obviously, the combine solidified that. But where does he fit in for what we want to do and where we would draft him? And I hate it because I always feel like we come to the same juncture that we're either going to have to, because we're drafting at the end of the first round, that we're either going to draft somebody too early or miss out on them in the second. And I think he's that kind of guy. I think when you look at his measurables, and he has the ability to cover, and that's the sought-after talent here, a guy who runs like he does, has his size, has his ability. If we don't take him at 30, we're not going to see him in the second round. So that's the dilemma. Does he offer us enough to what we want to do? And is he that much of a diverse talent as to what we have here now to draft at 30?
Yeah. My dog, you had something?
I was going to answer TFC. If he definitely did progress as the season and his game time went. And for stat guys, you can just look at his stats and see how each game he got better. Like his pass breakups got up towards the end of the season and everything. Like he progressed. He showed that he can learn it.
Yeah.
He's got the tools to do it. And I think I said with the proper coaching, this could be the beast.
So I guess my point about that is everyone's looking for the next guy. Everyone's looking for the who was the linebacker that Kansas City took last year?
Willie Gay Jr.
Willie Gay Jr. Yeah, Willie Gay Jr. is the same sort of thing. Everyone's looking for the upside linebacker that can cover, that can hit, that can play in the box, and you're going to reach a little bit on some of these guys, but can you eliminate the variables of we're just drafting another Bud Dupree type or another Mark Barron is the ultimate example of the guy that really isn't a linebacker and also really isn't a safety. We're getting better at identifying the guys that can do these things and the ones that are just tweeners. And to me, if Jamin Davis can learn, he's the guy. Like, there are two guys in this draft, and he's one of them. So that is why I think you take a risk on that, because it's just inexperience. It's not a lack of mental ability to do it. Because there are some guys that just can't do it.
And I think the thing too, and we talk about this every week, is we're in a position to kind of slowly bring along who we choose this draft. We don't necessarily, if it's cornerback or wherever direction we go at 30, we don't have to put you on the field now and say, hey, you're going to be our starter from day one. You got to do everything. The pressure's on you, kid. Good luck. If we selected Davis, there's going to be a learning process. There's going to be some maturation to take place, and he's going to evolve, and we're going to be patient with him. We have the luxury of being patient with him and kind of cherry-picking the times of when we want to put him on the field to exploit those talents and get the most out of him without really necessarily putting him in the fire and risk, damaging his progression, so to speak.
Yeah, I think there's just a clear difference between drafting this kid and drafting Terrell Edmonds, which the Steelers did, trying to fill the same role. So that's the important thing, is everyone's trying to fill the same role, and how you're trying to go about it is the successes and failures of teams. And when we get to JOK, I'm going to dive into some of the things I was researching about Sean McDermott and what he's done in the past at Carolina and the shifts, because I think that's important to inform what we're talking about tonight too.
Yeah. I think we all can agree that Jamin Slamming Davis definitely has tools that the Bills will covet. I would definitely love for them to take him, because like you guys have mentioned, that they would not have to be stressed about bringing him along and him being the guy right away. He has that opportunity to sit and learn how to play the linebacker position and learn how to be a problem in his role with the Bills. So we're going to move to our next linebacker, a linebacker that the Bills have actually had pre-draft conversations with, and that is linebacker Jabril Cox. So Jabril Cox actually started at North Dakota State University, and he actually graduated from there. And then he went as a graduate transfer to LSU to obviously probably boost his draft stock, because he knew how good he was. And he actually did good in FCS and FBS competition. So the fact that he was able to, cover, because that's his thing. He's a cover guy. That is what he will give you. He will be able to cover at a high level. Like I said, he has done it in the FCS level and at the FBS level. And he came to LSU and was probably one of their best defensive players, on their team. And the Bills, he was one of the first pre-draft meetings that the Bills had with him. So I like his fit for the Bills, because he would be exactly what they need, but he struggles to get in the run game and get after it. That's his biggest knock. He'll be nice in coverage, but he won't give you much in the run game. And as Greg talked about at the beginning, if you're going to be one of these top guys, you got to be able to do both. So we'll start with TFC on this one. What do you like from Jabril Cox?
So the first thing is, he was, when we first started this, he was my favorite guy that I had looked at, because I just assumed some of the top guys wouldn't be there. And he's got a nice blend of size and range. So at North Dakota State, he was legitimately covering guys 20 yards downfield in the slot. So that's exactly what we're talking about. And he played multiple positions for LSU at times, where he'd walk up, he'd be the Sam linebacker in run formations. He played the will sometimes when they were in nickel and dime. And he even, when they went to full dime, he'd be the Mike linebacker. So he never came off the field, and he was covering in multiple places. I think that's very valuable. And of these guys, you could make the argument that Slam and Jam and Davis has more size because he uses it, but Jabril Cox is the thickest, biggest linebacker of these. He's got the most traditional build. But my biggest thing is, and he's going to have his pro day right before the draft. So he still hasn't done his on-field stuff for LSU, even though they had their pro day earlier this year. I need to know how fast he is, because to me it does matter. At this position, it matters, because he's going to be covering Jonnu Smith. He's going to be covering Travis Kelce. Like, that's the problem you're trying to solve. And while he's a smooth athlete in coverage, I need to know if he's actually going to hold up at the NFL level, or if he just looked good versus FCS guys and looks solid versus SEC guys. Like, he's got to be the tippy top. Like, all of it has to come together.
My dog, I am a mild fan of Jabril Cox. I think if the Bills were to take him, They actually people. Some people have him rated higher than Slam and Jamin Davis, right? So,
Yeah.
do you think Jabril Cox will project better as a pro over Slam and Jamin Davis? See, that's a tough one. It's a tough one, man.
You're asking the tough questions tonight.
Yeah. That's what
I'm
we're
gonna
here for,
sit
man.
here- I'm gonna sit here and say no because I think Cox is almost hit his ceiling, whereas my man Jamin Slammin' Davis is still raw and hasn't even, I don't even think, begin to touch his potential.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking Jabril Cox. Jabril Cox is one of those guys who does everything really good, excels in like TFC did, broke it down, excels in the pass coverage. That's really good. When I watch him, I don't sit there and be like, holy snakies. I'm just like, this dude knows what he's doing. He's produced on both levels. You know what I mean? Like you asked me that question earlier. He went to FCS, balled out, went to the SEC, and had a really good year. So he didn't care about his level of competition. He did his thing. He's the type of guy, no matter what you tell him to do, he's going to go out there and do it. So he's an ultimate team guy. And that's part of this culture that we have here, isn't it? They want the culture fit. So he fits that way. The one thing I see Jabril Cox, and I see it at least once or twice a game, is he could be way too aggressive, and he gets that paralysis by analysis. You know what I mean? Where he way overthinks stuff, and he totally takes himself out of the play because he's just standing like, oh, what's he going to do? What am I doing? Way overthink stuff. In a way that could be a positive, but it also leads to a lot of negative plays. Like I said, to me, he reminds me of like a C.J. Mosley, in my opinion. That's my comp for him. He's a guy that does, like I said, does everything good. Nah, I'd still rather take my boy Slammin' Davis, but if Jabril Cox came to Buffalo, it'd be okay because, like TFC said earlier, he could play the Sam because of the pass coverage skills.
Yeah. So Greg, here's my issue. I feel like with him, we're describing Matt Milano, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is like
good.
we wanna upgrade from Matt Milano. I mean, he's cool. It's cool that he came back. He can cover his behind off. We get it. But we want to upgrade. We want to at least have somebody in the wings that if Milano got hurt or if Milano start to think that he is as good as somebody else and he think he want more money, we need to have somebody else in the wing to take his spot. I'm looking at his PFF grades. So his run defense grade is a 55 and his coverage grade is a 83.5, right? So again, that's just screams Matt Milano to me. Talk me into why I should draft Jabril Cox.
Well, I think that all predicates on where you're going to draft Jabril Cox. You know, if we're talking the first round, I think you're drastically overreaching for somebody there, and especially based on if we didn't have Matt Milano, then you say, okay, hey, listen, he's the best of what's available. I think he's a good fit, and we could work with that. But the fact that we have Matt Milano, I'm not going to push too hard to draft Jabril Cox. And I like Jabril Cox. And I think you got a kid who played at a very, all things considered, a lower level of football. And he didn't come to North Dakota State as an outside linebacker. I think he played quarterback or something.
Yep.
So he learned there and progressed. And the thing, if you look at his ceiling, I disagree with Mud Dog in a sense. I don't think he's hit his ceiling because I think he played at a lower level. Then he jumped up from basically the kiddie pool to the tidal wave of oceans and storming on him.
Big boy competition.
He made a huge jump, and he did not look like a fish out of water. He played extremely well, and if anything, helped his draft status. So I think the more he's around NFL caliber players in the competition, the bar raises. I think he rises with the bar. So I like that about him. And if we're just talking about him as a player, not Buffalo fit, there's a lot of stuff I like about him. I think he's the type of guy who shortens the sidelines. I think when he's in the box and comes out, it's hard to get the edge on him. It's hard to beat him outside. He has that. He takes great angles. I think he's a swift mover outside the box. Now, if you're talking about him working in the box when action's coming directly at him, he doesn't stand up to that very well. And that's Matt Milano right there in a nutshell. He's great away from him when it's all coming at him. He doesn't have the physicality and the skills to stack blocks and shed and make those plays in the lane. Yes.
The one thing I'll say is the difference is Jabril Cox is bigger. Like he's longer. He's got 33-inch arms. So you could reasonably think with some technique, some coaching, and maybe the light comes on for him. Because I thought at LSU he was still learning the defense a little bit. And I thought there were some slow processing moments not tied to RPOs and things like that. I think, as Mud Dog was saying, he was thinking a lot. last year. So that was why I want to know what his 40 time is, because if he is fast enough and you can get him in the second round, that does change my calculus of the draft. I do think ultimately he's a will. I think he is a guy that, you're right, he's Matt Milano. He'd be best in that situation, but I do think he might have some cross positional versatility, and that's why I would do that.
What I think he offers that Matt Milano doesn't, that is when you watch him blitz, he's a much better blitzer than Matt Milano. Matt Milano is basically a liability. When he blitzes, he just gives himself up. He has no plan, no nothing. He's just running into blocks. Jabril Cox understands finding the seam, finding the lane, getting skinny, and slipping and cutting through there to make plays and be disruptive in the backfield and being a chase player from there on. I don't see that in Matt Milano, but am I going to draft a guy in the first or second round just because he's a little bit better of a blitzer and offers me a little bit more in terms of a pass rusher than Matt Milano? No, I'm not. And like I said, Matt Milano's effing up our entire night because it's kind of like that's the guy, and these are the guys that we're talking about that are going to be that kind of fit. So there's not necessarily a need for most of these guys. We can make an argument for them, but we're talking about guys in the first or second round. Is that the investment we're going to make for just a little bit of a tweak or diverse skill set than Matt Milano? I don't. It's a hard sell to me to bring in somebody with a little tiny bit of a better versatility or a little bit more upside, than Matt Milano.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you, Greg. When I was processing it in my mind, I'm like, man, this sounds just like Matt Milano, and it's just like I don't know if he's going to be necessarily of an upgrade over him.
I would say he is, though. I would disagree. I think that ultimately, ultimately, I think he's got a little more length. He's got a little more size. I think he would hold up a little better against the run. But you just gave Matt Milano $44 million, so the point is really moot. I think ultimately he could be a better version of that. But you're right. It's percentages. It's not necessarily a massive upgrade. And
that's you're gonna. If there was no Matt Milano, the argument would be great. Hey, this guy could come in and be better than Matt Milano. But why would we experiment with that? Roll of the dice for we already have Matt Milano. We don't want to be just a little bit better than Matt Milano at 30 or 61.
Here's a question, EJ, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. When did they talk to Jabril Cox, and when did they give Matt Milano his contract extension? Because honestly, I think one informs the other about what they decided to do this offseason of like, okay, we like this kid, but he didn't blow us away. We think they're comparable talents. We've decided not to draft Jabril Cox because we've re-signed Matt Milano. So, not trying to put all the strings together on the board with all, I'm not trying to be crazy and try to connect dots that don't exist, but it does, you're right, it does kind of screw up the whole analysis of Jabril Cox would be perfect for the Bills if Matt Milano didn't exist, and I think that might be the decision they made.
Yeah, and I think they talked to him very, very early in this process. Right. He was on like many people's pre-draft meeting lists for the Bills, so they had to talk to him really, really early. So I think you're probably spot on with what you said. So I mean, I think we can agree that we like Jabril Cox. I just honestly don't think that he's going to upgrade the Bills' defense. He would just be more of what we already have. So, I mean, as much as we like him, and then on a second-round grade, like he's probably going to be a good player for another team in that Matt Milano-type role. And like I said, giving Matt Milano $44 million kind of messed up everything for us. But, Jabril Cox is going to be a great player, and I think he's definitely going to be a great pro because his skill set is very transferable to the league. So now –
he feels like an Eagle to me. Is that weird? Like I just see a Philadelphia Eagle for some reason.
Yeah, but they don't make the right decisions now. They got new brass now, and they just do everything other than what they're supposed to do. So even though he probably should be their pick, he probably won't though. But as we move to our next linebacker, this is a guy that I actually had a chance to talk to, and this is Chaz Surratt from UNC. Something that I liked about Chaz, he played quarterback in high school, and then he went from Coach Mac Brown said when he first got to UNC, he told him that he wants to exclusively play linebacker because he knew that was his way in the league. And I asked him, I said, hey, Chaz, you have a very unique perspective to playing the linebacker position because you played a position of quarterback that was very mental. And he broke down to me like, hey, you should do this as a linebacker, do this, look for this. He's very cerebral at the position. Now, I looked at him on tape before we got on air, and I thought he was pretty good at, diagnosing for the most part. But, I wasn't wowed by him. That's the thing. Like, I wasn't like, man, we got to get this guy like I am with some of these other guys, you know. And Greg, you were the one who actually did a full analysis and breakdown on him and had a video on YouTube about him. So tell us what you saw when you did that breakdown.
I think when you're looking at Chaz Surratt, you got a guy who's a very, very fluid, very versatile athlete. Obviously, you hit it off there. He came to college playing quarterback and then made the transition to linebacker. So he's learning out there. But you have a guy, he's very, very, very brainsy. He was valedictorian, I think, in his high school, and he also was like a chess master. So I think you got a guy who's definitely has the brains to make that transition. I don't see somebody who's obviously as refined as he could be. He's still a work in progress. But if you watch him, his ability to blitz and play downhill, I think is the most impressive trait there is. Him going downhill and playing, at the point of attack, blitzing, making himself skinny. That's the impressive part of him. And I think there's a lot of that where I'm looking at.
Come here. I'm looking in the mirror.
Is that on my headset or is that?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is that? Yeah.
There's sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Very
You said
unprofessional.
Chaz-
Very.
yeah.
Watching him play downhill and doing those things and being a blitzer, that was what intrigued me most about him. Because you look and you sit there when we had Matt Milano, and I think a lot of us got frustrated with Matt Milano was that, okay, he can cover and he's effective out there. But when we send him, I want to see someone who's going to get in the backfield and be effective and make negative plays when given the opportunity to. And we didn't get that with Matt Milano. When you watch Chaz Surratt, he is that guy. He exemplifies somebody who, when given the opportunity, he's going to get downfield and find the football. And that's what I really, really liked about him. Obviously, he actually reminds me a lot more of Matt Milano in terms of his physique and his abilities, other than the fact that Matt Milano is more of a coverage linebacker, where Chaz Surratt is more of a blitzing linebacker, but stuck in the same frame. If we can kind of mush both of their talents together, we'd be okay. But now, looking at Chaz Surratt, he's not a first round. I don't think he's a second round. I think realistically, even at the time when we didn't have the knowing if we were going to have Milano or not, I didn't peg Surratt until a realistic consideration until the third round. So, given the fact that we have Milano back, it's kind of like a record on repeat. Is there a need for a Chaz Surratt here in Buffalo with this system? And I don't think there is. And it's sad because I like the kid. He would have been to me a day two Milano replacement, but Matt Milano went and screwed up our whole show.
Pretty much. I just want to throw out there that the Bills, in that meeting that we had with Chaz Surratt, where we talked to him at his pre-pro day, he mentioned that he did talk to the Bills a number of times. So he is on the Bills' radar. But again, I'm looking at his biggest strength, right? And they said his biggest strength is his mentality, and his biggest weakness is taking on blocks in the run game. Like, we need a linebacker who can actually tackle. The Bills have been one of the worst tackling teams the last 2 seasons. Last year, the year before last, they were second to last. This year, they were 19th. The Jets had a better tackling grade than the Bills did.
And but that's the only thing they focus on. Like, they've got a bunch of guys from 2002 that are real good run defenders.
Hey, I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't give a shit about how good the Jets were at tackling. They couldn't do anything else.
They were doing a lot of tackling out there. That's why they were so good at it. By game 6, they had spent the entire season on defense.
But to your point, EJ, you're right. That is a huge problem for the Bills. Yeah.
My dog, get in here, man. What do you like about Chaz Surratt?
The biggest thing you got to like about the kid is how he played quarterback, and all of a sudden he was asked to play linebacker, and he did it he just went in there and did it. He did a solid job of it at the college level, in my opinion, especially in the passing. I think his years of being a quarterback helped him with that because he understands throwing lanes, he understands routes and everything, so I think it helped him. This guy, you want to talk about this guy is rawer than I like my steak. He needs a lot. He needs a lot of development, in my opinion.
Some seasoning
I think
too.
He needs to really work on his tackling. I think he really needs to work on his tackling. I don't know if it's a tackling technique or is he just that quarterback thing that don't touch me. He's just a lazy tackler. I've never really pegged this young man, and I'm not knocking him. I like I said, I commend him for making the transition he did. Like I said, he did good. This is somebody I've never really pegged to Buffalo. Like my man Greg said earlier, to me, this is Matt Milano, just a little bit better of a blitzer. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like I said, the Bills. He mentioned that the Bills did talk to him, so like he was on their radar, and maybe they're looking at him, later in the draft. And Mud Dog, to your point, it says Surratt is a developmental project, but he has a legitimate reason for being behind the curve because he came. Mm-hmm. He literally, they said the first time he played linebacker in a game was against Clemson, and he had to go tackle Travis Etienne, and he took it for a touchdown. So like, you're gonna have to have some type of patience with this kid because he's still learning the position. He said, Chaz said that he's talked to Luke Kuechly, and Luke Kuechly is one of his mentors. You go Luke Kuechly, Sean McDermott, Buffalo's defense, Carolina's defense. So I mean, it's some nice correlations there.
The biggest problem is that
I think that's a really good. Like I said, I commend him for that. Like I said, it's not like he did a terrible job doing it. He did an okay job, especially in pass coverage and everything. It's just like you guys said, the tackling. You either got it, you don't. I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody said.
He's going to maximize his potential. Like, I have no doubt about the fact that he's going to maximize his potential. But what's his potential? So this is something that I've looked at with a couple of these guys is he's got 31-inch arms. So he doesn't have long arms to tackle with. You look at some of the guys we talked about tonight. They look like condors out there. He looks like a regular guy playing football. And that's why he looks like Matt Milano is because his frame is maximized. I don't know that he can be much more than 230 at most. Yeah. And that's my biggest problem with him. And I do think that he'll be the consolation prize in the later rounds for them, and they will bring this guy on because I think they love him and they love his mentality. And I do love the way he plays in coverage. I think he's got super great coverage potential where he can turn, he can make plays on the ball. I love watching his hips. He looks like a corner with like his hip fluidity. And again, it all comes out of teaching him where to be, how to be, and all those things. But he's not what I'm looking for. Like, he's not the guy I'm looking for when it comes to the physical skills. And as much as I think he does have more upside and more to give, I don't think it's in the position that I'm looking for. And while I do think he could play that role and be adequate at it, he's not a home run hit at that position.
And that's where it comes down to. We said we've been talking all night. Is if we're going to bring in one of these linebackers, they have to be a diverse set of skills to what we already have in place, or otherwise have such a great trajectory that it's a no-brainer. And we're just kind of getting more of the same, yet we have to wait to get it with Chaz Surratt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's going to be, when he finishes being what he's going to be Matt Milano. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? When he grows into himself, when he comes of age and all the seasoning is done and he's finally cooked, to use Mud Dog's steak analogy, he's going to be Matt Milano. So, we're not really moving along here. We're basically kind of putting his heir apparent in grooming for the next 2 or 3 years. So I don't see the value there. And I think you're realistically going to see Chaz Surratt probably get ran at in the third round. So
and you'll see him get run at it on the field too, because he's just not great against the run. He's just not great.
I think he's somebody that would be an excellent, absolutely superb special teamer in the onset of his career, and that's gonna really probably be on the sideline. Should be on the sideline for a year or two. And is that something that we want to make any investment in on this team and the trajectory that we're heading in the third round? It just doesn't make any sense to me there at all.
Yeah. I think he could be there in the fifth.
If he slipped to the fifth, I could see that as a developmental line. I still think we have other things to address. But I think with his makeup and the skills and the potential that he has, I think there's a realistic possibility for the third, fourth round that he's getting taken off the board.
Yeah. Let me throw something at you, because you did give me an idea, and I won't physically throw anything at you because I'll just break my stuff.
Yeah, all right.
Matt Milano, after 2022, his cap hit, if the Bills were to cut him, is $3.5 million. So really, he's got a 2-year deal as far as guaranteed money, 20 this year, 12.5 or 12.75 next year. So if they were to get Chaz Surratt in the fifth round, and what they paid for was a Super Bowl window with Matt Milano, he does extend the window of having their pesky coverage linebacker who might be a little bit undersized against the run, but is a phenomenal player all around. So if they were to take this kid in the 5th round, or if they got him where they got Matt Milano and they replaced eventually like for like, and you eat $3 million, I'm on that all day. Especially when you've got that's when you've got the Josh Allen extension in. You need to have guys that can come in and play, and you're going to have 2 years, maybe 2.5 years of him doing that. Like, I would be all in for getting Chaz Surratt in the 5th round.
You should work for the CIA and be some sort of cultivator for conspiracy theories, because you're like 19 moves ahead, and I'm just trying to follow what you're saying here. So basically, in a nutshell, you're saying draft him if he's there in the 5th round, so that if and when we have to, we could have Matt Milano's replacement when we cut his deal short and send him on his way after we've gotten our Super Bowl ring. Man, do you know who shot JFK? Tell me.
No. So no, I'm not saying after. So I'm saying you have paid for a quality linebacker, and I will say Matt Milano is a quality linebacker. I feel like there's been a little too much heresy tonight. Like, he provides a very valuable role covering tight ends and running backs. Like, he does what he's supposed to do. Now, if he can just tackle better, I think that all of these problems we're not as pissy about Matt Milano in this conversation. But in 2 years, if you draft his replacement and you have a cheaper version of him, then you can continue your dominance on offense. You can continue to invest in your offense, your offensive line, your quarterback, your receivers, your secondary. What you're doing is it's a cost control measure. I'm not saying that Matt Milano is going to win you a Super Bowl, but Chaz Surratt can keep that Super Bowl window open if he is the guy that turns into Matt Milano, because then you have a cost controlled measure of him going forward. So you're buying him for the future. And in the 5th round, I'm buying for the future all the time, because that's what I want.
If you're telling me it's a 5th round pick and we have 2 of them and one of them was Chaz Surratt, I'd be high-fiving you, bro.
Yeah, I think to me that's what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we can all agree that if the Bills were to get him like somewhere in the 5th round, somewhere later in the draft, TFC, that's a great point that you brought up about cost control. I am one of the biggest proponents of pounding the table for cheap talent. And if they got Chaz Surratt in the 5th round, he would fit that very mold. And like you said, keep that Super Bowl window open if he were to develop the way we feel that he would. And so,
bunch of ifs there.
What's this guy says? TFC brings a great point. We are drafting to get cap support later. I see this being a reason we draft safeties next year, maybe this year too. Bills that haven't really talked to a bunch of safeties, in their pre-draft process. That's why we're going to skip the safeties thing. We're not really gonna talk safeties like that. But anyway, wait, one more. Yeah, Cap. There you go. He said Cap. Okay. We are gonna move to all of our favorite linebackers tonight, and I wanted to say this. It's good that we're ending with this guy because I had a question for the panel also, and I think it's a great question. But we are going to talk about Notre Dame linebacker / slot corner Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Now, I watched this guy on tape for like the first time today, and he is a guy that pops. Like Greg was talking about, he is a guy that pops off tape. He can tackle, he can cover, he can diagnose. Somebody even talked about him being really good as an edge. I mean, I see him stack up a tight end and make a tackle for loss. This guy, there's nothing he cannot do at the linebacker position. And I am on record as saying that if the Bills decided that they wanted to trade up for him, I'd be all for it.
You beat me to it.
Yeah.
But listen, but hold on. Y'all didn't hear my question, though. Here's my question. Before you guys talk about Jeremiah, JLK, we'll say JLK because his name is long. We'll say JLK. Here's my question. We have said before that we want to see the Bills trade back, right?
Right.
So here's the question. And Mud Dog, you're going to go first and you're going to talk about Jeremiah. But here's the question. Should the Bills trade back and get slamming, jamming Davis, right? Try to hit on him in the 2nd or 3rd round, or trade up, or stay at 30 and get JOK? I think it's a debate there.
Are you saying we can get JOK at 30? Is what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. If we could get JOK at 30, stay at 30. But if you can trade back, get more picks, and get Jamin Davis, I mean, and chase the upside. I don't know. That's a tough call. So,
EJ.
so Mud Dog,
I
what do
think
you
you're
think?
playing devil's advocate right now, man. I don't like
I'm
this.
not. I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm not playing devil's advocate.
If we're at 30 and JOK's there, yeah, okay. I mean, I'm cool with that. I'm better with that than a running back. I'll tell you that much right now. I mean, you know that's not your sting. I'm okay, and if we trade back to get my man Slammy Davis, I get a couple more draft picks. You know,
But
likes
but
the
my
draft
dog,
picks.
you can't be on the fence, my dog. You gotta pick one or the other.
I'm gonna because 30 in the Slammy Davis, so I'm gonna say we gotta trade back and a guy.
Trade back, my dog's your.
But in all seriousness, I really like him. He's the
Oh,
overall
no.
pass coverage linebacker in all aspects in this draft, in my opinion. I could talk forever about everything I like him, but my favorite thing I like about this young man that I see from him, that I don't see a lot from these other guys we talked about, is the way he can work around the trash. If you guys know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all that
Yep.
Yes,
blocking,
sir.
all that garbage there, the way it does not affect his game. He knows his
Yep.
assignment and he gets it done. This is the Swiss Army knife in this out of the guys we talked about, in my opinion. This is a safety, in my opinion, playing linebacker. The
Yeah.
one big concern I have is when he squares up against somebody like Travis Henry. Is he going to get his bell rang because of his size?
Travis
Do I
Henry.
think... I'm sorry, Derrick Henry. The
Travis, Derrick
kid.
Henry. Yeah.
Derrick
Derrick
Henry.
Henry.
My
Either
bad.
or.
Yeah.
Travis Henry could probably still run.
Yeah. Will he get his bell rung?
Right.
Just playing cake. That's my only concern when he goes up against bigger, stronger NFL running backs. That's the only really knock I got to say besides the obvious is undersized. But
Yeah.
I'll trade back and take my boy Slammy Davis. I got to. I named him that. So
Bold
So
move.
Mud Dog's on the trade back. TFC, answer Kyle's question.
Okay, so yeah, I was thinking about this today. You know what, EJ, you kind of pissing me off here because I told my wife earlier today. I said, you know what, I'm gonna blow their mind. I'm gonna say this is the dude where it's a good idea to trade up, and I would do it. And then you're like, we're gonna talk about trading up for JOK, and I'm like, damn it.
I asked the question. That's all I did was
Damn
ask
it.
a question.
Yes, I would trade up. And then 17. So, I don't think trading major assets
Yeah.
is a good idea. So 17 is at the very end of that. I think 2021 is where I would go. If you can get up 10 spots, maybe give up a second next year and one of those fifths this year. And let's just say in our imaginary scenario, you're giving up Chaz Surratt to get JOK. You are guaranteeing that you're getting a guy that can cover.
I'd
You're
give up Chaz
guaranteeing
Surratt and his brother.
yeah.
right, and his mom. I don't care. Like
Yeah.
all the Surratts,
His
I don't know
sister,
them.
I don't care.
So this is going to kind of lead into something where I was looking at this today because this is, to me, trading up makes sense because you're killing two birds with one stone.
Yes.
You are getting your third linebacker. You're getting your 11th defender. So you don't have to worry about if it's Taron Johnson or it's A.J. Klein anymore. You've got Jeremiah Owusu Koromora. He's going to be on the field for 70, 80% of the plays. And I went back and I looked at 2015, 2016, before Sean McDermott came to Buffalo. And do you know what team had the second most snaps of linebackers covering the slot that year, those 2 years? Carolina.
Yeah.
You know in 17 who was in the top 5 in 2017? Buffalo. But they haven't had a guy that can do it, so they stopped doing it, and they've been rotating between corners and safeties. Now, the saving grace of that has been that they have had two safeties that can do it, that they have two guys that played corner before and that are good in the box and that can do a versatile number of things. If you get this guy, they can, like, Pandora's box is open. The evil genius that is Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier will wreak havoc upon all coverage schemes. They can play 2 high, they can play 1 high, they can play cover 0. This guy does all of it. He can cover Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki. He can cover Travis Kelce. Like, that's what you got to find. And this guy does all of it. Now, Jamin Davis might do it. Slam and Sammy Jammin might do it. but we don't know. We've seen this guy do it. Hell, I saw him cover Devontae Smith in the slot. What the hell? And he plays big enough to play in the box. Like, this is the guy. Go get this guy. As much as like edge defender, I think, is a critical need, you do have 3 guys that have played last year, and you did invest a second-round pick last year in AJ Epinesa. So there are resources there. There is nobody in the slot that I have any confidence in this team. That is the biggest weakness. And that's where, as much as Levi Wallace, everyone wants to replace him, like, you can hide one defender. But there's 3 corners that play on every play. There's only one slot defender. And this guy, he's a game changer. So if you can, and it doesn't mortgage and bankrupt the future, go get this guy.
So your team trade up.
Oh, hard. Yep.
Okay, so we got 1 team trade back, 1 team trade up. I'm always team trade back. Greg, it is on you.
So
what do you think?
Before I divulge, where I stand, I just want to talk about the kid first and foremost. Very few players have I come across this year, and I don't know how many dozens and dozens and dozens of players I've broken down. This kid, I literally caught myself, and I wrote it down on my notepad. Wow. I just said, wow, 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 wow.
Yep.
I mean, the things that he is doing out there.
Look at that.
Yeah. I mean, the explosiveness that he plays with. I mean, just talk about him up in the box, first and foremost. His ability to get from the second level into the backfield is lightning. Lightning. He covers those 6-7 yards faster than I've seen linebackers probably since Lawrence Taylor. I mean, he is that fast from the second level into the backfield. It's absolutely absurd. He took the pitch in the Clemson game from the running back in stride. Absolutely absurd that he came that fast from the second level into the backfield, took the pitch, and took it home. Okay? I mean, that's just a tidbit of what this kid's capable of doing. And the thing that got me so wound up is in this era of football with linebackers, and we're talking about cover guy. Nobody hits anymore. Nobody sets the tone. Nobody lays wood anymore. None of that stuff happens anymore. This guy does that. I mean, especially this 2020 when there's not fans in the stands, you hear this guy's pads resonate. You hear helmet resonate. I miss that about football. This kid is an absolute sledgehammer. Now, that's just him around the box. Talk about him in coverage. It's insane. It's absolutely his ability to play man coverage, his ability to hawk, to run with receivers, to play big with tight ends. Now, we talked about guys that were bigger, that played smaller. This guy is smaller, who plays like he's 280 pounds.
Yep.
He's covering bigger physical tight ends and doing it with this fluidity and this grace that you don't see from corners. And he's able to come up and lay helmet like he's Mike Singletary. So I'm absolutely smitten with this kid. And I didn't look at him as much as
Smitten.
I did not, and I'm ashamed, I did not delve as hard into him early on because I just, on the onset, seemed like he's going to be out of our reach. And I still think he is at 30. I don't think there's any way this kid makes it to 30. If it does, it's an absolute travesty.
Yeah.
But if he's on the board in the late teens to the 20s, I am moving up to draft this kid because, like TFC so eloquently put it, he solves so many of our problems, and he makes this defense so much more diverse and puts us in the direction of where we want to go. I'm so sick of being a bend but don't break defense and patching things up. We've been talking about this since we started. We need a dog.
Yep.
Owusu Koromoa is that dog who could do so much for this defense and open up so many avenues for us to exploit offenses. Players, like you said, we're hiding. He's the guy who brings it all together, and I think if you can go up 10 spots and, like TFC said, give up a second next year, a fifth, to get a guy like that who could step in day one and be a difference maker and put all our worries to rest, go get him. Hands down.
He takes up 2 positions. That's the thing. Is like normally
extremely well.
Yeah, when you're trading up, you're trading away another player. He's getting you 2 players. Like he's your slot corner and your linebacker. So he is a better version of Shaq Thompson, who Sean McDermott invented this, as far as I can tell. Like he's the father of this idea, and I don't know there's ever been a guy that really has this combination. Now, there's been guys that are good, and there's been safeties that play above average, like the Honey Badger. He plays tough in the slot, but he's a small little dude. This dude, again, 33-inch wingspan, 6'3". Like, even if he's 225 pounds, like you talked about, he plays like he's 240. The only problem will be if he just murders himself. Like, if he hits somebody too hard and he gets hurt. But I'm willing to take that risk.
Mud Dog alluded to, he plays with reckless abandon, and he just looks to put people's lights out, and I love that about him. I do. But from a financial investment standpoint, just make the tackle, bro. You know what I'm saying? I don't need you knocking yourself out cold. I mean, there was a couple of hits you watch. I mean, the dude from Boston College, he put that guy in outer space. The guy got up, fell down, looked, and Cormo walked back to the huddle days too. I'm like, that's great. I love seeing that. That's old football. I love that. That's the era of which I came from. But if you're investing all that in to trade up and go get the guy, longevity supersedes highlight tackles.
And I'm glad both you guys brought up, his uncanny tackling ability, because I remember there was something on Twitter, and ESPN did a thing about it where this guy did an equation about how hard he hits, and I can't even name a guy on Buffalo's roster right now. Maybe Poyer. On a guy on Buffalo's roster right now, that's like, yo, he gets up and he lays a war, or yo, he will knock you out, and I like that. And if he can knock, like, I was not on a team trade up type thing, I wasn't on it, but if you got this guy, as TFC said, he will knock out two positions, and you can take Teron Johnson off the field, and he can play slot cornerback, and he can be that 11th defender that TFC always talks about, that 11th guy. So I'm in love with JOK. Greg, you never said if you were a team trade up or trade back.
I thought I put it pretty clearly. I would if he is in reach in the late teens, early 20s, you have to go get this guy. I think, like I said, if it's for a respectable haul that we can understand what we're giving up, and we're not mortgaging the future of this franchise to get him. I think if it's something within reason, make it happen, because I think that guy answers a lot of our prayers.
Yeah, Where would you if you were strong-armed by the rest of us onto team trade up? What are you giving up? What's the minimum you'll allow to trade up?
I'm right where you're at, about in that range up there. I'm not going any higher than like 15, because they're going to cost too much. If you want to go anywhere in the 20s, maybe I'm okay with that. Then all right, but.
He might go at 7.
I'd be all right with it.
I think he's being slept on, as he might be the first linebacker. Yeah. It's him and Micah Parsons. Like, it's just different skill sets.
I feel like we got to stop talking about him, because I don't want anybody to hear about him. Stop talking about him. He's not that good. He's overrated. Just trust me.
Are you trying to do the Justin Fields thing where we all just say it and like,
I heard Dan Orlovsky. I heard Dan Orlovsky said JOK does not work hard. JOK has no work ethic. Don't draft him. He's garbage.
I also heard he's slow.
Very slow. Doesn't
Cody,
hit.
I don't know if the Bills have met with him yet. It has not been reported that he's met with the Bills yet, but they need to. I'll say that much.
He did say that he had glowing things to say about the Bills' defense. He said like what we said. He'd be a perfect fit for the Bills. He loves their system, but basically he's, I don't know if I'm going to be there. Like, that was realistically what it is. He knows how good he is. So yeah.
And that's good. And that's good that he knows how good he is, because he knows, like, yo, if a team want me, they gonna have to come up and come get me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So honestly, if they were able to get somebody like JOK at pick 30, that pick would be a pick that would be better than the running back. If y'all are still clamoring the table for Travis Etienne or JOK, y'all really need to really seriously sit down and reevaluate how you watch football.
Yeah,
I think he's the first kid. He's the first guy we've all agreed on, right? So he's
He's not the first guy. No, he's not the first guy.
No,
we've
but
all
I mean,
agreed on some picks.
But like that, we would be like, I don't know that we've all agreed on 30 at any one point. Like, the one guy at 30 you'd be okay with. I don't think any of us have been, because Greg and I disagree about the edge defender. I'd take Owe over Russo. Yeah. And you want Caleb Farley. This is the only guy that I think all of us are like. I don't think all of us are on the same page. Like, we may have a couple of us that like the same guy here and there, but I don't know if we've all been as united about this guy as we have, this specific position, this player. And I never thought it was going to be linebacker. Honestly,
Yeah.
I did not think it was gonna be that.
Man, that's the beauty of the show, man.
Listen, and he's a special dude, and I think we could all.
Yeah.
You can't have a good concept of football and evaluating talent if you watch him and don't come away absolutely smitten. To use
So,
another great word.
Yeah, so Greg, answer this last question for Kyle. Kyle's been showing love to the show, and Kyle, we appreciate you. So answer this last question for him, and then we're going to have to get on out of here.
I'm going to say that is not my strong suit in terms of what wheeling and dealing would take to get up there. I mean, you look at some of these trades, it seems like guys have to give up the entire haul, future and picks to move up a couple spots, where some people seem to give away a washer machine and move up a couple spots. So that's definitely not my forte. I know there's equations out there. People who legitimately have these value charts of what it would take to move from 10 to 5 and 15 to 10 and all that stuff. But I think what we're talking here, realistically, if it's a 10-spot move up, to give up a 2022 second-round pick, a fifth, and maybe something else of this year or next year, I'm all right with that. You know what I'm saying? I said we're in the best position to do something like that this year now.
Yeah, so I think like you said, TFC, we are all in agreement that if the Bills got JOK, he would definitely be not just a game changer, he would be a total defense changer, and he will be that guy that the Bills are lacking. He will bring the Bills closer to beating the Chiefs, and he should be the pick at 30 if he's there. So we appreciate everyone that's been showing love to the show all night. Kyle, Sheldon, everyone, Cody, everyone who's been showing love to the show. This is one of our last shows before the draft. We have 2 more weeks officially before the draft happens. We're planning a special show for next Thursday where we're going to do a mock draft, a battle mock draft. And what that is that all of us will pick the best 22 guys only from the 2021 draft class, and we will create the best mock draft just using the guys from the 2021 draft class. So please, next week, tune in for that, 9 o'clock again. We want you to tune in, be a part of it, critique our picks, tell us what you hate, what you don't like, give your 2 cents.
And we're going to have you guys vote. We're going to have you guys vote on it. Finally, our fans and viewers and all the people that have been supporting us throughout these last couple of weeks are going to be voting on it, and it'd be a cool way to interact with everybody.
Absolutely.
And with the first pick, it's JOK, right?
Well, I mean, hey, you never know. You never know, man. You never know. It could be.
You let me get that first pick. I'm gonna throw in a surprise there. Watch.
Yeah, man. So again, we got some last comments rolling in. Sheldon, thank you for showing love to the show.
Yes,
we appreciate everyone who is showing love to us. Again, we want you to tune in next week for our live battle mock draft. It's going to be a fun event. Again, we love all you guys. We love our fans. We love our viewers. And again, we will see you next week, Thursday, 9 p.m. for our live battle mock draft before the draft starts.